Call the meeting to order. Please call the roll.
Ms. Roulette.
Here.
Mr. Cockrell.
Here.
Mr. Denton.
Here.
Mr. Majors.
Yes.
Mr. Allen.
Yes. Item number 2 will be the statement by the Board Vice President, Mr. Steve Majors.
As we begin this meeting, let us pause for a 60-second moment of silence to reflect, meditate, pray, or engage in any other silent activity. Thank you.
Next item will be the Pledge of Allegiance, led by Mr. Jerry Denton, the Board Clerk.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Before we adopt the agenda, I just want to make a comment or a statement. With respect to Teacher Appreciation Week last week, we didn't have a meeting, and I would like to personally thank all of our teachers, our staff, for everything they do for our district. They make these meetings fun, and want to thank them, and just so they know that the board, part of our appreciation is we're always looking for things to do, ways to show them how much we appreciate them. But so they are aware and you are aware, the board has been working very, very hard, and it is our goal within 3 years to be the highest paid in this area. That is our goal as a board, and we've been working hard with Dr. Dunlap and her leadership staff to make that happen. I think I can speak for all of us. We've had those meetings, those discussions. We're all on the same page, and we want to be number one in pay because they deserve it. And they don't get paid enough, but we're going to do everything we can to make that work, and we're going to work that plan. I feel very good about our plan, so I just want everyone to know that. We want to thank our teachers and our staff, and Dr. Dunlap and her staff, and we truly, truly appreciate each and every one of you. So thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Nope.
All right.
Second that.
All right. All right. We make a formal adoption of the agenda. Go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to say, make a motion to approve.
Thank you.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Please call the roll.
Ms. Roulette.
Yes.
Mr. Cockrell.
Yes.
Mr. Denton.
Yes.
Mr. Majors.
Yes.
Mr. Allen.
Yes, thank you. Next item will be the discussion and approval of the April 15th meeting minutes. Any discussion? Entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve.
I'll second that motion.
Got a motion and a second. Please call the roll.
Ms. Roulette.
Yes.
Mr. Cockrell.
Yes.
Mr. Denton.
Abstain.
Mr. Majors.
Yes.
Mr. Allen.
Yes. Next item, number 6, Ms. Bergwall.
Yes. Good evening, President Allen, Dr. Dunlap, members of the board. I have a couple fun things for Wolf Creek tonight, and I believe I just saw our Eagle Scout Matthew Carter walk in, and he would like you to accept the donation of, there he is back there in the back, of his Eagle Scout project to build a Gaga pit at Wolf Creek. You say, what's a Gaga pit? It's basically soccer meets dodgeball in a hexagon. Is that a good description of it, Matthew? Yeah. Okay, great. And we actually have one of these out at Highland Park. I know that they love it. Their PTA put theirs together, and so we're a little familiar with them from an operations standpoint and are excited to support Matthew in that endeavor with your approval.
Cool. Discussion, comments?
No.
Matthew, we want to thank you for all your hard work and doing this for our school. Thank you.
All right.
Entertain a motion.
I'll
Make-
motion.
Second?
Got a motion and a second. Please call the roll.
Ms. Roulette,
Yes.
Mr. Cockrell,
Yes.
Mr. Denton,
Yes.
Mr. Majors.
Yes.
Mr. Allen.
Yes. Thank you. Next item, Ms. Birdwell.
Our next item is a donation from the Wolf Creek PTA, and Ms. Tira Spino and Whitney Guthman are in the back there to bring us this donation and ask for your approval tonight so that they can build a track at Wolf Creek. And that is a 5-foot wide track is what they'd really like. So we'll have to adjust the length just a little bit, but we will get them that 5-foot wide track at Wolf Creek and build that this summer. So they would like you to approve the $20,000 donation for a track at Wolf Creek.
It's outstanding.
That's
Thank you all very
amazing.
much.
Awesome.
That's great.
Outstanding. Make a motion to approve.
Got a motion, can I have a second?
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Please call the roll.
Ms. Roulette,
Yes.
Mr. Cockrell,
Yes.
Mr. Denton,
Yes.
Mr. Majors.
Yes.
Mr. Allen.
Yes, thank you all so much.
That's
Yep.
amazing.
Wonderful. Next item, comments from the public. We have none. Item number 9. Ms. Peterson.
All right, I come to you tonight asking for the approval for an offer of employment to Miss Beth Johnson to serve as the new principal at Rhodes Elementary. Beth started her career in Tulsa Public Schools, actually in middle school, high school, so she came with secondary experience, but then she came to Broken Arrow actually working with SchoolNet is how it actually started. And then she became our first technology instructional specialist, and I believe that was from 2013 to 2017. So she worked on the instructional team and then really felt a tug in her heart to be back with kids in a leadership capacity. And so she has served as the assistant principal fabulously at Wolf Creek. Very flexible, actually went over to BAFA for us for a little while and divided her time there. And I just have to say, when we went and talked to the Rhodes staff and asked for the characteristics that they needed in a principal, she exemplified every single thing that they said that they needed in a leader. So tonight we're just asking for your approval for Ms. Johnson to serve as our Rhodes Elementary principal.
That's cool.
Discussion. Entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Please call the roll.
Ms. Roulette,
Yes.
Mr. Cockrell,
Yes.
Mr. Denton,
Yes.
Mr. Majors,
Yes.
Mr. Allen.
Yes.
Beth, Ms. Johnson, would you like to introduce who you have with you today?
Thank you so much for this opportunity to serve the Rhodes family. And my husband here, Tim, and I were just really excited to join the Rhodes family. So
Awesome, thank you.
Congratulations.
Outstanding. Thank you.
Next item, number 10. Ms. Thornton.
Good evening, President Allen, Dr. Dunlop, members of the board. I'm really excited to be here tonight to ask for your approval for our director position in our department. As you know, Eric O'Brien left us last semester, and so we've been missing a staff member since then. And, you know, I told Dr. Dunlop when I came to Broken Arrow that it felt like home, and that has just been all the more reinforced since I got here. And so finding a new partner was really something that we wanted to take our time and find the right fit who could carry out our mission. And so I'm so excited tonight to recommend to you Jeanette Brown, who has been with our district. She's a BA grad.
All right.
She's been working in the district for 28 years, 5 years at the ESC. I don't think you can find anyone with a stronger work ethic or commitment to excellence. And so we're so excited to recommend to you Jeanette Brown for the position of Director of Special Services and Compliance.
Questions? Discussion.
Make a motion to approve.
I'll second it.
Got a motion and a second. Please call the roll.
Ms. Roulette,
Yes.
Mr. Cockrell,
Yes.
Mr. Denton,
Yes.
Mr. Majors.
Yes.
Mr. Allen.
Yes. Ms. Brown.
Ms. Brown? I don't think anyone knows who you have with you, but maybe you could introduce them.
She deserves the job alone just for having to put up with it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item, number 11, Ms. Brassfield.
President Allen, Dr. Dunlop, members of the board, I want to give a school report card highlight for the 2019. I'm probably going to have to look over here because I'm blind. But this year we got our first school report card. Before it's been called the A through F report card. So they made some changes due to ESSA. So the foundation is built behind ESSA. The basis kind of is that all students can grow and all schools can academically improve. So the system focuses on continuous learning and just having the school sites kind of review the data and make changes as necessary. So the ESSA requirements are the annual assessment, which is the achievement part, the graduation rate for high school, the academic part, and then they have a growth part for the elementary and middle. And then we have English language proficiency, which is the ELPA. And then the school indicators, which the state selected was chronic absenteeism for all schools, post-secondary opportunities for the high school only. So when they broke down the report card system, as you can see, they put it in a 90-point system. So they didn't want parents or the public to think of it as an A through F report card, like 80% is a B, 90% is an A. They wanted to have a point system. And so, and you can tell that elementary and middle schools are a little bit different than the high school because of the post-secondary graduation rate. So when we looked at our data and we analyzed it as an instructional team, on the data part, we saw some strengths and weaknesses. So one of the strengths that we thought was really neat was at our EL, one of our EL sites, Timber Ridge, they had made a B in their growth in our ELPA students. So we had kind of made some changes at that site. They had a heavy focus on that. And so we could kind of draw from what some strengths are and weaknesses. We also see some weaknesses. So the instructional team worked very hard this year, and we started kind of at the beginning of the year as well, making some changes knowing that this is coming. So some of this stuff started all the way in September. So I'm going to go through those with you. So we had in the academic indicator in the growth area, we analyzed site data and we held site meetings. Monthly meetings at the high school have begun, and we hired title assistants for more intense interventions at our elementary sites. We had kind of emphasized the importance of practice testing. This is very important because we tested online for our 4th and 5th grade for the very first time this year. So they needed to know how to get online, how to highlight, how to do all the little tools. SAT, grade level department meetings. Our high school worked really hard on the SAT suite of assessments. They gave all the teachers access to the data. Some of our middle schools did as well. And then the instructional specialists really worked with the teams on the SAT and the standards and information that would help them in the classroom. We also implemented this year Khan Academy. Khan Academy is like a tutoring session for kids, But the cool thing with it is, since we're giving the SAT, they can link up their College Board account with Khan Academy. And so once they have a score in there from their PSAT 8 all the way to the SAT, the students then can go in and it will show where their weakness is. They click on that link and then it takes them right to Khan Academy, which will give them an actual instructor that is like a video instruction. So if they have a certain standard or a certain area that they need help, they can click right in, watch the video, and then they also give practice tests to try to improve either the PSAT 8, 9, 10, or the SAT. So we started linking that with our 8th graders through seniors this year. We provided videos for teachers and students on how to link that up, and we're getting ready to send it out to parents. So that way, hopefully this summer, our kids can practice at home and keep working on those skills all summer long. So on post-secondary opportunity, we had sat down with College Board. They created some data reports, some trend data with us. We sat down with the instructional team and went over those. Sharon James has worked really hard with our internships, trying to get that number up and where it needs to be and making those connections. Also, we're analyzing student dropouts for AP courses. So if the student doesn't take the course the full year, they didn't get a point. So we want to make sure that we're supporting them mid-year to make sure that they go ahead and finish. Under chronic absenteeism, we have partnered with Impact Tulsa. I'm excited. In a couple weeks, maybe next week, they're giving us a 5-year study on attendance. Ashley Bowser has worked a lot on sending us data, and Diana Bjornson, and we're trying to put it all together, and we are giving it to Impact Tulsa. So we'll be able to look. We turned in football games. Medical alerts. You know, does a student that has a medical alert miss more days or not? So we looked at different things on Wednesdays, late start Wednesday. Do we have more absences on that day? So we're trying to see how we can help with our chronic absenteeism students. So we're having meetings this summer with the instructional team. We're going to sit down with them for 2 days and go over all the data. Then we'll also sit down with the principals in the fall, and the principals can actually look at the data, pull the data, and then they can go, hey, I would like to know if a student on a 504 has more absences than not, can we pull that information? So they could actually ask Impact Tulsa to get some more data for us. So we're excited about that. We also went over the attendance procedures with our building principals. And we have a base education program this year. It's an online modular for students that they can work through that will help with social emotional benefits. And we have right at 500 modulars. So our middle school is just knocking it out of the park, working with the kids. And so we're hoping that social emotional aspect will help our attendance as well. So on the graduation, we have had intervention meetings at the high school. They've met with the administrators and counselors, tracking the cohorts. We're having monthly meetings with that as well. They have a math lab. This is new for students that are struggling. Tutoring throughout the day, and then the credit recovery after school, and that's in addition to the one that we've already have during the day. So for EL growth, we have reviewing the data with each site. We moved our EL assistants this year so we could touch more consult kids and have a hands-on with them. Every student in our district is now on an ELAP, which is kind of like an individual learning plan, kind of like an IEP, but it's for our EL students. And they all can have accommodations if they need it. We have provided elevation training with EL strategies of the month. And so Jennifer Betzworth has sent out newsletters every month. Actually, she sends them out every Monday. but at least once a month, there's a EL strategy of the month. We've also trained all our title and EL teachers in these strategies, and then she went and trained all the classroom teachers in EL strategies, and then talked to them about language acquisition. So that is what we kind of did this year for the instructional to kind of help improve. Our preliminary state results that we just finished will come out May 23rd, and our parents will be able to receive those on May 23rd as well. And that's the first time that they've ever had them that early. Usually they have to wait until October. So we're sending a newscast, communications working on it. Should go out this week to let parents know how they can access that information. And our SAT scores are coming out May 28th, I believe. So we will look at those scores, and then we'll start this process all over again on what we can do to improve and look at the different areas, but we're hoping to see some great growth. So do you have any questions?
Ms. Bradsfield, give an example of what we're doing or what our approach is going to be, or Dr. Dunlop. It looks like most of our chronic absentee is at our elementary from this report, the lowest numbers, I guess, or elementary.
Yes.
I mean,
Well,
outside of providing free transportation and you going and putting them on the bus, I mean, how are we going to get them here?
well, we did have a push that communication put together, and I think that really helped parents know that it's important. It starts young. You know, you have to get them to school. I noticed when we were pulling all the data for attendance as well, we have a lower attendance in our pre-K. Well, pre-K is not required, so parents think that they don't. So, you know, that's some of the things that our team will kind of look at and Impact Tulsa, and we'll kind of talk about those things. Maybe how can we get them there at pre-K and let the parents know there that it's really important, and then move it to elementary as well.
And Mr. Allen, this has got to be a conversation that can't just be the school, lifting all of this. It has to be a community-wide effort.
Kind of what I was thinking.
And getting behind the importance of being in school. And Jean is exactly right, especially our pre-K and some of our younger grades. They think, oh, well, it's just pre-K and kindergarten. What does it matter? It matters a lot, because that is where all the foundation is built in those early readers. So we started this year with a campaign. It went out on social media, and I think our own Mr. Cockrell down there was in one of those advertisements in his firefighter uniform with one of our kiddos, basically saying, be here, BA. So that means we need you in the seat, and being in that seat in the elementary school equates to being in that seat at our graduation that we just had last week. So we need everyone to continue to talk about this, and if you have neighbors or friends or relatives that you know, hey, we're going to take a vacation and it's during school, but it's no big deal if my child, yes, it is a big deal. They need to be there in school, and it does make a difference for them to be there every day. So.
Thank you.
Is there a truancy law?
There is a truancy law.
Isn't that illegal?
But, well, if they go over a certain number, so it's those 10 days, it's when they become, a chronic absenteeism person. And we understand that sometimes you have kids who have, chronic illness and things like that, and that's not what we're talking about.
Right.
We're talking about, I need a mental health day, so I'm just gonna stay home and, lay in the sun today.
Play on my phone.
And play on my phone, yeah.
So do these numbers, when you say chronic absentee, does that reflect over 10 days, people in our district missing over 10 days?
No, it's over 17 days, so it's your 18th day.
That's what those numbers reflect, and we're still, jeez. Mr. Martin, you need to be writing some tickets or something.
Well, and when I said during that part that we went over attendance procedures and policy, or procedures, we kind of touched on that as
Sure.
well.
Well, this gives me a good chance to also talk about our project that we're working on with our Redefining Ready metric, which is how we determine whether we're successful at the high school level. And one of the pieces that we put in that as measurement was that attendance factor. Because I don't know about any other employer, but I don't want to employ someone who's absent that much. They will not be working there much longer if they're absent that much. So we have to get that message out to parents that it's important for kids to be in school, because their job, according to the IRS, is as a student. So take them to work.
Good information. Questions or conversation?
A lot of questions,
Thank
but not ready.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next item, number 12.
Oh, that's me.
Dr. Dunlop?
Yes,
Why don't
sir.
you take that.
Okay, so this item is the beginnings of a discussion around a proposal that we received for a TIF, or a tax increment financing. And just a real quick background for those that don't know what TIFs are. Basically, it's tax relief, and it helps developers when they're making significant infrastructure improvements to an area that stimulates growth in that area. There are options in TIFs of time periods, so whether it's going to be 10 years, 15 years, 25 years that those taxes are deferred or relieved. And there's also options of the percentage of taxes that they will not have to pay. So the percentages usually are 50-50, 80-20, or even up to 100%. We have a guest with us this evening is Norm Stevens from the city. And the reason Norm is going to come in here and present this is because this is a partnership between the city, the school district. Tulsa Tech also has to be part of this conversation, TCC, anyone who's receiving these taxes or not receiving them during a tax increment financing plan. And what we're doing tonight is just the beginning. It's just to prove that the city is going into investigation of this process. It doesn't mean we're going to do it, doesn't mean we're not. But we have to, by law and statute, go through this process of the investigation first and then what follows. So Norm, thank you for being here.
Thank you very much. President Allen, board members, Dr. Dunlop, I'm Norm Stevens, Economic Development Manager for the City of Broken Arrow. Approximately 2 years ago, I was contacted by a gentleman by the name of Rex Robertson, who owns a 90-acre tract at the Creek Turnpike and State Highway 51. It's west of the Creek Turnpike and just to the south of Highway 51. Mr. Robertson was talking to me about a proposed business park that he wanted to put into that particular location. He estimated that the project development cost at that time, and I would imagine they've gone up some, was approximately $3,753,515, or $3,753,515 in development costs. As you can imagine, after he purchased the property, to go in and put that kind of infrastructure in is very arduous at best. I worked with different partners that the city has as far as getting economic development and incentives to assist with this project. Just to kind of bring this board up to date, the City of Broken Arrow is the third largest manufacturing in the state of Oklahoma. Manufacturing is our lifeblood. A lot of people think, well, you got to have retail and that jobs will follow, and that's not the way it works. Jobs or retail follow jobs. And right now, where the manufacturing push is going is into Wagner County. There's available land. It's a little bit cheaper. As you all know, it's not a great deal cheaper, but it is a bit. I visited with the Department of Transportation about industrial access funds. I visited with the Wagner County Economic Development Authority, and for 2 years I worked on this project. Each one of the entities that would provide funding for this in the way of incentives, what they would like to see is for them to have on paper a company that says, hey, we're coming to your development. The problem with that is the companies that wanted to come to that development wanted all the infrastructure in and wanted the project ready to break ground. So we got into a chicken or egg type of situation. Approximately 3 or 4 months ago in early 2019, Mr. Robertson contacted me and we sat down and he said, I want to talk to you about possibly doing a TIF. And I explained to him that there is some reluctance about doing another TIF, and he was a bit perplexed. He goes, I don't understand. He said, I want to do a 50-50 TIF on ad valorem. And I asked him, why didn't you start talking to me about that 2 years ago? And we could have had a greater conversation. What Mr. Robertson is proposing, and he did a similar TIF in Glenpool, where I believe it's Mark Allen Chevrolet is located in that large development. This was done the same way. And what he does is he will put up all the money up front to put in all the development. The TIF will be an ad valorem TIF for 10 years, and it will be split 50-50, and he will receive 50% of the ad valorem tax over that 10-year period, and the taxing entities will receive 50%. To help put that into a little bit of perspective, his estimated 2019 ad valorem tax will be $191. for that year. At the end of the 10-year TIF, if the park fills up the way that he believes that it will, the school district, the Broken Arrow School District, will receive $2,483,369 in new ad valorem revenue. Once again, the city of Broken Arrow and the school district is not being asked to put one dime up front. This is all loaded on the developer. If it fails, the developer fails. If it succeeds, we all succeed. So it is a win-win opportunity. The TIF will be capped at $5 million. So if this fills up fast, which it could be a less than 10-year TIF. But the way that it is laid out, it's 50-50 TIF ad valorem for a maximum of 10 years. I'd be happy to answer any questions this board may have of me.
So basically, we take 191 times 10, that's what we're getting if we do nothing.
Yes, sir.
And potentially, we could get 2-point-something million, potentially, if this project succeeds.
Yes, sir. And not in a way that he was meant this to be menacing or all, and he said this in front of Dr. Dunlop. Mr. Robertson said, I can't make these numbers work without a TIF. He said, without a TIF, that land's just going to sit the way that it's sitting now.
Get $1,900 bucks. We get $1,900 bucks, or we take a chance to make $2 million.
Yeah, I'm rolling the dice.
Any questions, discussion?
Appreciate you coming out.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, President.
So we have to make a motion to approve the investigation, is that correct?
Yep.
Thank you, Dr. Dunlop.
Thank you.
Anybody have any questions?
Nope.
Or comments? Okay, well, take entertain a motion to approve the investigation into the TIF.
Make a motion to approve?
Second. Okay.
Got a motion and a second, please call the roll.
Ms. Roulette,
Yes.
Mr. Cockrell,
Yes.
Mr. Denton,
Yes.
Mr. Majors.
Yes.
Mr. Allen.
Yes. Mr. Stevens, we want to thank you and the city too with your partnership to help the district and the city to grow. And we appreciate that partnership, continued partnership. Thank you. Next item, number 13, will be the approval of consent agenda items 13 through 73.
No changes?
Any discussion?
No changes or anything?
No changes.
All right.
Nothing's been passed.
Make a motion to approve?
I'll second.
Got a motion and a second. Please call the roll.
Ms. Roulette,
Yes.
Mr. Cockrell,
Yes.
Mr. Denton,
Yes.
Mr. Majors.
Yes.
Mr. Allen.
Yes.
Scroll up. No.
Lose it.
Make it work.
Alan lost his buttons.
So, next item 74, Dr. Dunlop.
Yes, this item is an action item, and what it is we have a position on our Economic Development Corporation Board in which we actually have 2 seats. Mr. Allen and I both serve in that. But Mike Cooper has stepped off the board. He stepped out of the chamber position that he held, so we now have an open position. And the EDC would like to recommend Davis Robson. According to the bylaws of the EDC, that has to be approved through our school board. So this item is to recommend Davis Robson to the Economic Development Corporation Board.
Dr. Dunlop, this is an agreement between the city and Broken Arrow as well, correct? The city
Correct.
council approves them as well?
Correct.
Thank you. Questions, comments? Entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve?
I'll second that motion.
Got a motion and a second. Please call the roll.
Ms. Roulette,
Yes.
Mr. Cockrell,
Yes.
Mr. Denton,
Yes.
Mr. Majors.
Yes.
Mr. Allen.
Yes, thank you. Next item 75, Ms. Kearns.
Good evening. Last school board meeting, I brought to you first reads of the policies that will be the final for this school year. We will bring anything that's mandated during this legislative session to you in the fall. There have been no changes since that first read, and we ask that you approve those changes tonight.
Ms. Kearns, they've been reviewed by legal, correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions?
Cool.
Entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve?
I'll second.
Got a motion and a second. Please call the roll.
Ms. Roulette,
Yes.
Mr. Cockrell,
Yes.
Mr. Denton,
Yes.
Mr. Majors,
Yes.
Mr. Allen.
Yes. Ms. Hill, we're going old school on this now?
Are you not, do you
No.
not have your voting button?
I
I
guess
do.
we are. I'm out again too.
Okay.
Can you sync?
Mine
Can you
work.
hit your sync? I do have on,
You've got 'em.
ma-
Okay,
on
that's
paper.
fine, as long as you got them.
Okay.
Next item, 76, Mr. McNabb.
Yeah, I'm done. You let.
Good evening. I'm going to ask you to approve the bid submitted by the lowest responsible bidder, Summit Bus, providing 7 77-passenger route buses and 3 14-passenger Type A buses. All bidding was conducted pursuant to the competitive bidding as required by law. Total cost to the district is $873,917.
All right. You and Mr. Majors?
Yeah.
Any questions, discussion?
Mm.
Entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve.
I'll second that motion.
Motion and a second, please call the roll.
Miss Roulette?
Yes.
Mr. Cockrell?
Yes.
Mr. Denton?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Builder Bob, you're next.
Good evening. I'm here to seek your approval to accept bid packages for new elementary school and reject bid packages 10.06, 10.07, 10.09, 10.10, 27.02, and 32.02 in the amount of $16,862,311 and award those packages to Manhattan Construction.
Mr. Tolnell, what's that, 6 packages? Why are we rejecting those?
We were slightly over budget, so we're going to ask that you accept the bids where they total now. We've come up with about $200,000 worth of VE, just cutting those bid packages and cutting other things within the building. And we have to VE another $85,000 out of the project. Some things, some of our utility locates and stuff like that have come back below budget, so we think we'll be able to get some of that money through that.
Any questions? Entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve as stated by Mr. Tolomeo.
Second.
Got a motion and a second, please call the roll.
Miss Roulette?
Yes.
Mr. Cockrell?
Yes.
Mr. Denton?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes.
And
Thank
when
you.
we get those done, we'll take a deductive change order to the board for that amount as well.
Okay, next item, 78, Mr. Tolomeo.
I'm seeking your approval to award Crossland Construction as the construction manager for the Childers Middle School project.
Questions or discussion? Entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Second that motion.
Motion and a second, please call the roll.
Miss Roulette?
Yes.
Mr. Cockrell?
Yes.
Mr. Denton?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next item, Mr. Moore.
Good evening. I have the next 3 items. The first is seeking your approval of the bid received for the Vandover Front Drive project in the amount of $119,850 from R&L Construction. We did receive 4 bids for this project, and it did go through competitive bid process. Funds will be from the bond funds. This is to redo the drainage in the front drive at Vandover. I don't know if you've ever been there and had to go over that huge mountain to get in. This will solve that problem.
Having technical difficulties, sorry.
Yeah. Sorry to interrupt. All right.
One more second here.
I'm about to log out and come back in. 3rd time tonight.
Sometimes call that a PEDCAC issue.
What's
PEDCAC issue. Problem exists between keyboard and chair.
I'm not surfing the web here or nothing. There we go.
All right.
I'm back in.
All right, here we go. Any questions or comments on Mr. Moore's
Sorry.
request? Entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve.
Second that motion.
Motion and a second, please call the roll.
Miss Roulette?
Yes.
Mr. Cockrell?
Yes.
Mr. Denton?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes.
Thank you for your patience.
That's fine, no problem.
Mr. Moore, number 80, sir.
The next one is to asking your approval for the bid received for flooring of 15 classrooms at the Freshman Academy in the amount of $43,270 from Floor House. These were also conducted through the competitive bid process, and we recommend you accept the bids.
Questions? Discussion? Entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve?
I'll second.
Got a motion and a second. Please call the roll.
Ms. Roulette,
Yes.
Mr. Cockrell,
Yes.
Mr. Denton,
Yes.
Mr. Majors,
Yes.
Mr. Allen.
Yes. Item 81, Mr. Moore.
Seeking your approval of the bid received for high school flooring project. This is the floor classrooms in classrooms in building A and C, and the hallway upstairs in building C, in the amount of $55,382 from Floor House. This was also collected through the competitive bid law.
You know, I first read that the other day. I thought it was 55 million. I was like, good.
There'd be a lot of carpet.
That would be.
Putting down carpet, the good stuff. Questions? Entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve?
I'll second that motion.
Motion and a second. Please call the roll.
Ms. Roulette,
Yes.
Mr. Cockrell,
Yes.
Mr. Denton,
Yes.
Mr. Majors.
Yes.
Mr. Allen.
Yes. Thank you,
Thank you.
Mr. Moore. Next item, Ms. Enoff.
Good
Good
evening.
stuff.
Financial reports through the end of April, only a couple more months of our fiscal year. This is a very critical time for finance. We've pretty much stopped routine spending and trying to get things closed out and ready for the new year. So obviously the biggest increase in state aid comes from the mandated pay raises that went into effect this year, about a $10 million difference of what we received in state aid from the previous year. And the good news of that is that the pay raise has come in as projected, and we haven't had any unhappy surprises with cuts from the state, revenue failures, any of that language that we've been discussing in past years. So that is definitely a very positive thing for the state and our district. Ad valorem, again, the growth in Broken Arrow has continued to be impressive. As you heard earlier in the evening from Mr. Stevens' presentation, businesses want to come and grow and prosper in Broken Arrow, and so this is reflective in our tax dollars and our valuation growth. And we've seen about a 6% increase that you can see across general and building fund. Building fund is such a small targeted growth of revenue collections. We have to be very selective with how we spend these funds and make sure that we protect this fund as much as possible to make sure that we can continue to maintain our buildings and our equipment to the standard that Broken Arrow deserves. Child nutrition, everything is coming in as expected in her collections. And our general fund expenditures, we're watching very closely, obviously, salaries and benefits to make sure they're in line with the mandated pay raises. And everything else is pretty much coming in as projected. One of the things that we are keeping a very close eye on as we continue to budget for next year is what the tariffs will do to just rising costs across the board, especially in steel and metal that we have to buy for parts and equipment. So we'll be watching this very closely. Building fund, salaries and utility purchase property services make up this fund, and child nutrition related to everything that goes into running our wonderful food service program. And we will continue to track our ending fund balance. Just as a reminder to the board, the fund balance numbers that are reported are in line with how we report our financials, which is through our comprehensive annual financial report. This does not reflect cash fund balance. This is an accrued method of accounting that take into account some other methods that we have to report in accordance to presenting a full CAFR. May I answer any questions?
Ms. Enos, I want to thank you, you and your team, for keeping us in the position we're in. I know that we had an unfavorable decision against us in the legal realm on that tax items from the state. And obviously, when we're in a different financial position, we would probably feel that impact even more so. And by what you all do, it helps us as a board stay on task for our goal to be the highest paid in this area, to pay our teachers because of the practices that you all are having and applying within the district, and we appreciate that.
Well, I certainly appreciate that compliment, but it's certainly not just myself. I just have the privilege
Sure.
to be up here. It's our entire leadership team.
There's a big
and,
team, I understand that. And
a
we
lot,
appreciate every one of you.
a lot that goes behind the scenes to making this all very successful, but I do appreciate the kind words.
Questions, comments?
Thank you.
Okay, next item, 83.
My next item is to ask the board to approve the transfer of funds to the newly sanctioned band booster account that was approved in March. They have 5 different activity fund sub-accounts, and we have gone through the reconciliation process and basically cleared out 2 of those 5 in the amount of $85,973.08. The other 3 accounts will be brought to the board later this summer as we close out the fiscal year and unpaid POs. But this $85,000 amount represents the amount that has been fully reconciled to date.
Cool.
Questions?
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Got a motion and a second, please call the roll.
Ms. Roulette,
Yes.
Mr. Cockrell,
Yes.
Mr. Denton,
Yes.
Mr. Majors.
Yes.
Mr. Allen.
Yes. All right, you got to hustle here now.
All right, my next 7 items are in relation to board-approved sanctioning for our student activity accounts. As you recall, this was a board goal of ours the previous summer to get some of our student activity groups to be sanctioned status, and we have started to receive a good number of applications, and the first one up is our Tyget Booster Club.
All right, questions or discussion?
Nope.
Entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second, please call the roll.
Ms. Roulette,
Yes.
Mr. Cockrell,
Yes.
Mr. Denton,
Yes.
Mr. Majors.
Yes.
Mr. Allen.
Yes, next item, 85.
Is choir.
Okay, questions? Motion, entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Please call the roll.
Ms. Roulette,
Yes.
Mr. Cockrell,
Yes.
Mr. Denton,
Yes.
Mr. Majors.
Yes.
Mr. Allen.
Yes. Next item, 86.
12-year.
Cheer is the next.
We got cheer, 86.
Make a
Discussion? For Mr. Denton.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second, please call the roll.
Ms. Roulette,
Yes.
Mr. Cockrell,
Yes.
Mr. Denton,
Yes.
Mr. Majors.
Yes.
Mr. Allen.
Yes. Next item, 87.
Softball.
Questions? Entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Motion and a second, please call the roll.
Ms. Roulette,
Yes.
Mr. Cockrell,
Yes.
Mr. Denton,
Yes.
Mr. Majors.
Yes.
Mr. Allen.
Yes. Next item, 88.
Is baseball.
Questions?
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second, please call the roll.
Ms. Roulette,
Yes.
Mr. Cockrell,
Yes.
Mr. Denton,
Yes.
Mr. Majors.
Yes.
Mr. Allen.
Yes. Next item, 89.
89 is our soccer booster club.
Mhm.
Questions? All right.
Make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Motion and a second, please call the roll.
Ms. Roulette,
Yes.
Mr. Cockrell,
Yes.
Mr. Denton,
Yes.
Mr. Majors.
Yes.
Mr. Allen.
Yes. Next item, number 90.
And our final organization is wrestling.
Question?
Make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Motion and a second, please call the roll.
Ms. Roulette,
Yes.
Mr. Cockrell,
Yes.
Mr. Denton,
Yes.
Mr. Majors,
Yes.
Mr. Allen.
Yes. Number 91, Ms. Eniff.
Thank you. I just want to say, too, we really appreciate our parents taking this leap of faith with us, and it demonstrates an extreme amount of commitment on their part to ensure the success of these organizations growing and becoming even more successful. So we appreciate that very much as a district.
Absolutely.
My last item tonight is to ask the board to approve an increase in our building fund operating budget by $400,000. This increase is really an appropriation side. As you heard earlier in the meeting tonight, when we accept donations from PTA to do different things in our buildings, we're not necessarily adjusting the appropriation side of the budget at this time. And so since we've had several of those donations throughout the year, we need to make this adjustment to get us through the end of the year.
Fair enough.
Questions? Entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Motion second, please call the roll.
Miss Roulette,
Yes.
Mr. Cockrell,
Yes.
Mr. Denton,
Yes.
Mr. Majors,
Yes.
Mr. Allen.
Yes, thank you. Number 92, new business. We have none. 93, move to executive session.
Make a motion to move to executive session.
I'll second.
Motion second, please call the roll.
Miss Roulette,
Yes.
Mr. Cockrell,
Yes.
Mr. Denton,
Yes.
Mr. Majors,
Yes.
Mr. Allen.
Yes.
You all have to sign that.
Okay, next item will be SINF only. It's acknowledging that the board returns from executive session. Next item 95,
Oh, I shut my thing.
Mr. Denton.
Yeah, it's off. It doesn't matter.
The Board of Education and Dr. Janet Dunlop and Michelle Bergwall entered into executive session at 6:53 PM to discuss the purchase of certain real property pursuant to Oklahoma Statute 25 OS Section 307B3, and to discuss negotiations with BAEA pursuant to Oklahoma Statute Title 25 Section 307B2. At 7:34 PM, Michelle Bergwall departed and Natalie Eniff entered. The Board of Education returned to open session along with Dr. Dunlop and Natalie Eniff at 8:33 PM. This constitutes the minutes of the executive session.
Okay. Do we need to authorize, we need to take a vote, don't we? On number 95?
Yeah.
A vote on the contractual and the terms of the real estate transaction? Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve the purchase and contractual terms of a real estate transaction.
Second.
Got a motion and a second, please call the roll.
Miss Roulette,
Yes.
Mr. Cockrell,
Yes.
Mr. Denton,
Yes.
Mr. Majors,
Yes.
Mr. Allen.
Yes. Thank you.
Very good.
All right, we've signed this down here. Is that all we need to sign?
Each one of you sign that one page that
Yeah.
has all the flags.
And you're gone next month,
Yeah.
right?
You need to adjourn, please.
Hey, I
We need
think,
to adjourn.
adjourn.
We need to.
Second.
oh, got a motion to adjourn.
He seconded it. I motioned it.
Okay,
Got
take
it.
the roll, please.
Miss Roulette,
Yes.
Mr. Cockrell,
Yes.
Mr. Denton,
Yes.
Mr. Majors, Mr. Allen.
Yes.